Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Roberts from the Great Property Meet and welcome to this phenomenal series with Mr. David Clouter, property expert of 40 plus years. Now, this is going to be a video series, so what I would say is there's going to be 250 plus property strategies that we cover in this series. So if you like this video, press the like button, the subscribe button and the bell icon on the YouTube channel, this video, and you will be notified as we release each one of the videos in this series. So David, tell me a little bit, give everybody here, since this is video one in the series, give everybody a real summary of your 40 plus years in property.
Yeah, I started as an accidental landlord, as a lot of people do. I found I was quite good at it, so I ended up leaving my day job and doing it full time. Brilliant.
So let's kick this off. The A to Z of property strategies. Now, where are we starting at A and where are we going to finish at with Z?
We're starting with adverse possession, which is pretty close to the front of the alphabet.
Okay.
And at the end we'll get to zero voids, which is how not to have properties empty, costing you money but not bringing any income.
Perfect. So let's kick this off. Adverse possession. Explain to me the type of strategy that it is, where it sits in a property cycle, the risk, the reward, cash versus equity, timescale, difficulty. Shall I stop there and pause for breath and let you take over as the expert?
Give me quite a headache now. Well, adverse possession is basically taking control, if you like, of a property where there's nobody that appears to be interested. So it might be a sort of probate, if you like, where somebody's died intestate and it's a little triangle of land that's just got stinging nettles on it and nobody's got any sort of interest in it. It might be a house that is just completely run down.
Yeah.
And you go on the land registry and you can't find any record of it.
Okay.
This kind of
I was going to say, I've got a couple of those, shall we call them land banked for the future, where I have notices up on the site saying private property, call this number, and I effectively maintain that area. So that's the sort of thing we're talking about, where there isn't an owner, nobody can trace them, it's unregistered title generally at the land registry, so it's almost impossible, and you've knocked all the doors locally to try to get hold of who it might have been. So whereabouts in the property cycle would you use this?
You could use this at any point of the property cycle. To recap, the property cycle kind of goes up, and it doesn't really matter if you find one of these, stick a notice on it, or in the case of a piece of land, fence it off.
Yeah.
And then after a certain period of time, you can apply for title to be transferred to you.
So is this a high-risk strategy, a low-risk strategy? What would you say?
I would say it's very low risk because it's cost you one plastic wallet and a sheet of A4 paper and a little bit of your ink on your printer.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
The rewards are quite high, really, because it's money for old rope. And if you're successful, which you will be probably in the majority of cases, then you can add to your property holdings significantly.
So this is effectively an equity strategy here.
Yes.
And takes quite a long time from my experience. You effectively have to put your notice, serve 10 or 12 years, depending on registered, unregistered title. And difficulty-wise, is this a newbie strategy? Is this an easy strategy, or? It's
kind of medium, because if I woke up one morning and somebody had put a notice on my front door, I'd be a bit annoyed, notwithstanding the fact that the way that my property might appear to be from the curb. So it takes a bit of tact and having the right sort of approach.
Yeah.
But you get to see the kinds of property that are suitable for kind of this, and you can just drive around in there and you'll see them. So and it's just something you stick with.
So let's move on to another strategy. What's next on your A to Z?
It's airport parking.
So we've got another A, and airport parking. Is that an active or a passive strategy? Because cars move about a lot, so that's surely active, isn't it?
They do. No, it's kind of passive. What you would do is you would give some money to the person controlling the parking area to control to take the revenue from one parking space in exchange for a down payment for you for a certain period of time. So you're not there on the barrier collecting the money from the people at the ticket or this sort of thing, which is quite a good thing. But the money kind of comes in, and the risk, I suppose, is that it's an airport that isn't very well used, or that your parking spot is in an obscure part of the car park that is a very long walk to the terminal, that kind of thing. So you'd need to be aware of that. You will get cash flow. You will get a return on your investment, which will hopefully be sufficient to justify the cost of it. It's another long-term timescale. It's not very difficult.
So it's, from what you're describing, it's a cash parking strategy that's pretty hands-off. So if you're
Yes.
You have a job that generates a significant cash flow, you can effectively park your cash and back off.
Yes, it's
Okay.
parking in every sense.
Absolutely. So medium risk strategy, would we say this is?
I would say medium risk.
Yeah.
Yes.
And rewards, again, medium, because you're not going to get capital growth, and you'll get your capital back at the end of your lease.
You will.
So it's a cash flow strategy that's medium reward. Is that what
Yes.
you would say?
Yes, it helps the owner or operator of the car park because it helps with their cash flow too.
Yeah.
And then the money kind of trickles back to you at a much higher rate than it would do if you left it in the bank.
And it's not something for a quick flip over of your cash and make a quick return. It would be a long-term strategy, would you say?
That's right, yes.
Is
that's
it
right.
difficult to do this?
Not difficult at all.
Not difficult at all.
I mean,
Okay.
at the point where you set it up, you understand the risks, you understand the returns, you just sign the check, hand it over, and then the money comes in.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So that's two. Let's go for another one. Is it another A?
This is another A. We're just doing A in today's one. We're going to go through
Okay.
all the A's as it happens.
Brilliant.
We're up to angels.
Perfect.
Angel investors, in fact, not the ones with wings on their shoulders, although they sometimes do. They come in and rescue you as such. And you can either be an angel investor, which is to say, you've seen that program on telly, Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. So you might be the person with the money who comes along and looks at somebody's deal, and then in return for a share of that deal, you invest. And at the same time, as an angel investor, you're probably going to be taking an active interest in the project. You're probably going to be bringing your experience to bear to make sure that project comes to fruition and produces a win-win outcome kind of for everybody. On the other hand, you might be somebody who's relatively inexperienced, but you've got lots of good ideas, and then you're looking for an angel investor to back you, not only, as I say, with money, but with a share of their experience.
Yeah. And just to clarify for those who are watching and go, that's a JV. No, an angel investor is not just bringing cash, they're bringing knowledge and expertise that you do not have. Just to clarify that point for the audience, David.
Yeah, that's a very, very important point, because JV is just, well, I'll give you 3% or half of it or something.
Yeah, well, we'll do that in the J video.
We will. We'll get to J later, so I'm jumping the gun here.
So pulling you back on track, angel investors, can we do this in all parts of the cycle? Does it work? Or are the parts of the cycle where it might be a little bit more sticky?
Yeah, we can certainly do it on the up. We can certainly do it at the bottom where we're trying to recover. During this slippery slope bit...
angels tend to walk away, don't they?
Angels do.
They're risk averse.
And wisely so, I think, really, because...
Well, that's why they're angels. They got the cash because they got the knowledge and the experience that you haven't got.
Indeed so. So that's possibly the first of our strategies that we've discussed so far that isn't really appropriate for all aspects of the cycle. The risk is medium, I suppose. The reward's kind of quite low for the angel, but every once in a while, I mean, in the field of business or something, you back a reggae sauce or something like this. But
you get a diamond.
That's
or a
correct.
nugget of gold when you're panning.
That's correct. Oh, I love those nuggets of gold. There's a gold and silver event in our building here going on today, and I wonder if they've got their pans out.
Absolutely.
So obviously we're looking at equity, and the time it can be any sort of time scale. This could be a quick in and out sort of project, or it could be a much longer term thing that the angel investor takes an interest in. It could be a quick flip or something, or a title split, or other things that we're coming to later in the alphabet. But
so in terms of difficulty, this is not a strategy for a newbie, because you need knowledge, you need experience in order to do this, and you need cash to be able to put in.
That's
generally speaking.
As the angel investor, and strictly speaking, okay, there's another strategy for the angel investee, and that one is one for
newbies.
For I call them early stage investors.
Yes, early adopters.
That's right. And so let's say I've just started out in property, and I'm lucky enough to meet a person such as yourself. Then I will ask you to be my angel investor and to invest in my ice cream parlour, and also to help me with the flavours and the subtle blends and nuances and the lease in particular. Because many businesses that we might think of as working in a completely different area, one particular fast food chain comes to mind, which is franchised out all over the place, are in fact property businesses. So there's more out there.
And we might do that on another letter of these strategies. So we won't jump ahead, David. I'll pull you back again if I may.
Thank you.
Article 4. That's another A. Is that a strategy?
It is, in a sense. I mean, it's a kind of regulation that's been brought in to restrict, if you like, the spread of homes of multiple occupation into areas which are...
Well, can I take that back 1 second, David,
Absolutely.
and just explain? Article 4 is a restriction of your rights under planning laws. So it could be, my office has an Article 4 on it. It's not a HMO. Why does it have an Article 4? It's in a conservation area. I have to get planning permission to change the colour of my paint on the building, to paint the windows, because it might change the street scene. So if I change it from the colour that it is to a different colour, I need planning permission. Article 4 is a restriction on what you can do. So carry on, David, because you're referring to HMOs, which is this strategy.
Which is a particular, absolutely, that's a strategy. Article 4 has wider repercussions, but I think, as property investors, there's possibly no way to monetize your restriction on being able to paint the outside of the building, unless you have a tie-in with Dulux or something like that. But it's a particular interest to us as a money-making strategy, where there are restrictions on HMOs in a particular area, which will have been brought into place by the local authority, because they feel that there are perhaps too many of these, and that we need to sort of to clamp down a bit.
So to put that into business terms, in business, effectively there's a barrier to entry to you entering that particular marketplace, and the barrier is you need to circumnavigate the planners who have put in place this restriction and basically are saying, no, I don't want any more HMOs in this area, or you have to jump hurdles to make the planners happy, or there's another way, isn't there?
There are a number of other ways
yes.
In which you can address this.
We'll cover those in other strategies, though.
We probably will. Just before Christmas last year, you and I were taking part in a Facebook Live where
we did
very interesting strategy from a very experienced investor,
an extremely experienced investor,
and very knowledgeable and very smart. Was mentioned, which is that there are ways, when we get to letter L, we'll do land banking, but what he effectively was doing was putting in applications for properties that he didn't even own to get permission to have planning for these to be HMOs, which instantly to him raises the value of the item, because scarcity raises the value of something. And if something is restricted, basically how it works for us is that if we have some of them and they're restricted, they're worth more than in an area where anybody can just have them willy-nilly.
So to paraphrase what David has said there,
verbosely, sorry,
is this person was applying for planning permission to convert the property to a HMO in an area that was not a HMO area currently, but had a proposal to turn the area into an Article 4 restricted area. He was effectively land banking potential HMOs that he could either develop and use for himself, or uplift the value and sell on to other investors, having secured the area and all of the HMOs in the area, or potential HMOs in the area.
Yes, so
Crack
it's a bit of a preemptive strike, as the saying goes, but that's a great way to do it. If you have some HMOs in an area where Article 4 is introduced, instantly they're worth more. You've got more.
Totally.
You've got more value there. So this is.
And valuers will uplift your value as a result and lend you more money as a result.
Absolutely. So very often, regulation for the smart operator can actually, by reducing the competition and by increasing the scarcity of what you have, it can increase the value of your product.
Totally. So, works across all cycles.
It does.
It's a medium risk because you're having to apply for certificates of lawfulness or permitted development conversions of your property. So there's some cash to spend. But if you know the rules and the process and you've systemised it, you can potentially go to town on this. The reward is high, would you say?
I would say yes, absolutely so.
Would you describe it as a cash flow or an equity strategy, this?
I would describe it as cash flow. And it's also important to distinguish, just while we're here, that getting a planning permission from an HMO is very different from having an HMO license. These are two very separate things that people often confuse. The planning one is the one where there are untold riches to be tapped into.
Well, it might actually be a video series we do separately, which is about what is a HMO. A bank has a different criteria to the planners, who have a different criteria to the licensing authority. Your insurance company will have a different definition again, from an investment point of view and from a contract point of view. So what is a HMO? We'll do a video series on that just for you.
And don't even get me going on sui generis.
Oh, there we go.
Story
there
for
we
another
go.
Day. We should move on.
So, moving on. Give me another example of a strategy beginning with A, David.
Well, I'm still thinking about that your building and the colours that you're allowed to have on it, and I think that if you did it wrong, you'd have to paint strip, wouldn't you? You'd have to go outside with those scrapers.
That's a good idea.
There's another one which is called asset stripping, which is
I've
perhaps
done this.
more focused and will bring us more rewards. Now, asset stripping might be, for example, if you were to buy, and this happens in business as a whole, and you've got far more experience of business than I am. I'm just a property dude. Asset stripping in terms of businesses is when somebody will buy a business and they will harvest the useful parts.
Totally.
And obviously this has a wider use in the world of property too, because you might have your, I don't know, insurance resale business or whatever it is, working from an office, and you can separate the elements, and you might find, for example, regard that the actual premises from which this building is operated is perfect for converting into residential accommodation, and then you might outsource the actual business part of it to somewhere in the Philippines or something where it can be run at a much lower cost.
Absolutely.
So it's not about kind of smashing everything, but about rearranging, would you say?
Absolutely. And we were having a conversation earlier today, and I was sharing a little tax tip. And I might do a tax tips around different strategies. And there is a tax tip here where you can help somebody who is selling their business or their property with a business in it and reduce their tax bill very significantly and leverage that in your negotiation tactics. Now, if you like that, put a comment in the comments box below, because I might just answer and feed you some information there in the comments box below this video, because it's a very, very clever strategy.
And I think, that as we're going through this, we're going to find areas where we should step outside the box and make some separate videos about specific things. And I think tax is one area where we should do that, because there are a lot of little, and in many cases, not very well known strategies that we can use. Nuggets, that would be the word. Nuggets.
Tax nuggets. That's what we'll do. So this is not a passive strategy then. You've got to be quite active. Trading,
yes. Oh, yes.
Would you describe it as that? And does it work in all cycles?
It will work in all cycles. You've got to pick the right business.
You've got to bank the right horse.
And absolutely so, absolutely so. And you've got to. It's a situation really where the parts are greater than the sum of the whole, or is it the other way around?
Yeah,
something like that.
Something along those lines.
Where all these various parts, when summed up, are worth more.
Is it risky?
Yes, it is. If you get it wrong. Then yes, but provided you've done your due diligence at the start, provided you have experience in this kind of thing, and provided that the market for the thing doesn't change very radically, like there might suddenly be a lack of demand for property in the area where you bought the business, or the fundamentals of the business might change. These things can happen. There are always bigger things going on in the world that can influence it, but on the whole, not too risky. But the risk should be low unless there are big external changes.
So the rewards can obviously be high as well if you know what you're doing. So you do need knowledge, and it's a bit like being an angel investor. If you watch them on Dragon's Den, this is what they do. They de-risk by looking at how they can link what something else is or strip something else out into their existing business.
Yes.
So
you're spotting value that somebody else hasn't spotted.
Totally, or being able to add value through your own skill and knowledge and network that other people can't or don't have.
That's right, yes, absolutely, spot on.
It's a medium-term strategy. It's not an overnight thing, and I would say it's quite difficult because you need knowledge and experience. And if you haven't got that knowledge and experience, it's something you can gain over time, but is going to be quite a bit. Well, I'm just looking, and we've shared 20 minutes of the first part of our A to Z of property strategies. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see the subsequent videos, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified instantly it's released, hit the notify button down here. And we look forward to you joining us in part 2 of the A to Z of property strategies. This is Andrew Roberts with David Clouter, and join us at the Great Property Meet.
See you next time. Thank you very much.
Cheerio.